Claustrophobia is the fear of confined spaces. The symptoms of claustrophobia can present themselves as sweating, accelerated heart rate, dizziness, dry mouth, hyperventilation, hot flashes, nausea, headache, and numbness. Claustrophobia is classified as an irrational fear because confined spaces aren't innately dangerous, yet many people, including myself, have this fear. As a child, I would have consistent nightmares about being buried alive or trapped in a broken elevator. So this story in particular hits close to home. The woman pictured here is named Colleen Stan. She was 20 years old, and on the morning of May 19th, 1977, Colleen Stan decided to hitchhike from her home in Eugene, Oregon to Northern California to attend a friend's birthday party. She took many rides that day. She conversed with many strangers, and at that time become very used to hitchhiking. It was a common thing that young college students were doing all across the West Coast. Up to that point, Colleen had never had a bad experience hitchhiking. She was relatively confident in her abilities to discern whether or not someone was a creep, and was confident in her ability to run away if anything went wrong. Colleen only had one more ride to go before arriving to her friend's birthday party, and the people driving the car were named Cameron Hooker and his wife Janice. Colleen felt comfortable stepping into the blue van because she thought that the people looked friendly, and she felt that she was a veteran at hitchhiking. It also helped calm her nerves that the couple had their 8-month-old daughter in the car as well. Unfortunately, just 30 minutes into the journey, the vehicle stopped in a remote area, and Cameron held a knife to Colleen's throat. He then forced a contraption onto her head that was designed to isolate her from the outside world. It was a 20-pound wooden box that would latch around her neck and keep her entire head isolated from the outside world. She couldn't breathe, and she couldn't see. He also lined the contraption with soundproofing material. It would guarantee that Colleen couldn't determine where she was. It would prevent her from identifying her location, making it impossible for her to get help. Unfortunately, before Cameron put a knife to Colleen's throat, Colleen had the inclination to jump out the car. Before the attack, she asked both Cameron and Janice to pull over to a gas station so she could use the bathroom. She mentioned how a voice told her to run and jump out the bathroom window and never look back, but unfortunately, she chose to walk back to the van. Cameron Hooker and Janice met each other at a lumber mill, where Cameron worked. They had reached an agreement that he could capture a slave to take to Janice's place, because up until that time, Cameron had been using Janice to act out his sexual bondage. Janice didn't want part of that anymore, but she still wanted to be a part of the fun, so they chose to kidnap Colleen in order to enact their depraved fantasies. On the first night of her kidnapping, Colleen was strung up by her hands and physically attacked by Cameron and left blindfolded. She then was suspended into the air, and the couple performed their depraved acts on her. After they were done, Cameron forced her to sleep in a wooden box that he constructed to keep the young woman from escaping. The box had the dimensions of a crate, so Stan was unable to lay down. She had to sleep sitting up, all while being bound in chains. Over time, the couple realized that having a young woman chained and kidnapped in their basement was a bad idea, so they moved to a mobile home. Cameron constructed another box, approximately the same size as a coffin. This new box allowed Colleen to lay down, but it wasn't better. In order to hide Colleen, they slid the coffin underneath their waterbed, and they placed air holes on the top so that Colleen wouldn't suffocate. But since the box was under a waterbed, the heat inside the box would increase, and during each summer day where she was held captive, the box would reach a high of 100 degrees. She would be kept in this box 23 hours a day, and during the first week of her captivity, she was forced to sign a slave contract written by Janice and Cameron. The contract stated that she had to do anything Cameron wanted, from sex to the more mundane, such as household chores or looking after his children. Cameron and Janice had 2 daughters of their own. Neither of the children knew that the parents were holding Colleen against her will. The daughters didn't even know that Colleen lived in the house. They were under the impression that after Colleen would cook and clean for 2 hours a day, she would go home to her family. Little did the children know that under their parents' waterbed laid their maid, and while Colleen was in the box, Colleen noticed a photo propped up on a purse. The photo was of Marie Elizabeth Spanhake, a previous victim whose body was never found. Colleen also accounted that Cameron led her to believe that she was being watched by a large, powerful organization called the Company, which would painfully torture her and harm her family if she tried to escape. During Colleen's captivity, she was referred to as K, and she was only supposed to refer to Cameron as Master. and she was only allowed to talk when she was given permission or spoken to. Cameron reportedly wanted Stan to be like the female character in the 1954 French erotic novel Story of O, and soon started sexually assaulting her. The assault was usually performed with objects because Cameron didn't want to have vaginal sex with Colleen. He stated that violated their slave contract, and the act violated the sanctity of his marriage with Janice. Every day, Colleen was subjected to physical abuse. It was meant to reinforce the belief that the company was watching and was willing to beat her for any infractions. Cameron over time would grant Colleen rewards for her obedience, being able to jog outside, being able to be outside of the coffin longer than 2 hours a day, being able to converse with neighbors, and eventually, the biggest reward of all was being able to see her parents. She was allowed to visit her family by herself in 1981, but she didn't reveal her situation due to the fear of possible consequences. Her family thought she was involved in a cult because of her homemade clothes, lack of money, and absence of communications over the years. Her family tried to not pressure her for information, fearing that she would stay away forever. The next day, Colleen returned for a second visit, with Cameron posing as her boyfriend. Colleen was happy to see her family, but that happiness was fleeting. She had to leave, and she had to go back with Janice and Cameron. After the visit with her family, things got worse. Cameron was afraid that he had granted Colleen too much freedom, and all of the old rules reverted. She would now have to remain in the box for longer than 23 hours, and that would be her life for the next 3 years. Her life degenerated into being in the box for the majority of the day, and then being out cleaning dishes for 2 hours. In August of 1984, Janice began to feel bad about what she's done to Colleen. You see, the same thing was done to her when she was younger. Cameron used the same manipulating methods in order to break Janice down and turn her into the person she is now. Janice released Colleen from the box and told her that she was not a part of the company, but the company did exist, and that Cameron used the same manipulating methods to brainwash her. Janice then gave Colleen some money and put her on a bus. Colleen then arrived home, safe, away from both Janice and Cameron. Colleen refused to go to the police. She was afraid that Janice and Cameron would find out and kill her along with her family. She simply wanted to move on from the kidnapping and assault and attempt to live a normal life, even though she knew she was irreparably damaged by what Cameron and Janice did to her. Over the next 3 months, Janice tried to reform Cameron, attempted to make him stop leaning into degenerate sexual fantasies and wanting to kidnap another younger woman. Janice eventually called the cops. She realized her husband was sick and someone needed to stop him. While at the police department, she negotiated an immunity deal. As long as she testified against her husband, she wouldn't be charged with any of the same crimes. In the end, Cameron was sentenced to consecutive prison terms totaling 104 years for sexual assaults, kidnapping, and using a knife in the process. He was initially ineligible for parole until 2023, but there was a decision made to extend that an additional 7 years to 2030. Colleen attempted to have a normal life after the kidnapping. She studied for an accounting degree, and she attempted to build a normal life. Over time, her story became a little bit more widespread, and as of right now, Oxygen, a television channel in the United States, made a documentary about what happened to her, and it granted her a platform to share her true feelings about what happened. The documentary focuses on her life now. Stories about how much therapy she required as a result of this crime were peppered throughout the entire documentary, but she's been able to build a quite satisfactory life, and in some ways she's been able to move on from this terrible crime. Colleen Stan was held captive for 7 years total, and after this crime she was able to start a family of her own. She is now a proud grandmother and helps to provide support for other women who have been victims of abuse. Hello everyone, how's it going? I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, let me know in the comments down below, and leave a like if you liked the video. If you're new to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, fam. What you doing? Watch videos and not subscribing. If you're old, make sure you hit that bell so you get these notifications every time. If you haven't heard it already, there is a second channel, Ailurus After Hours, where content like this is the whole theme. dark history, true crime, scary stories, tragic events, all of it. If you are interested in that and you want more content like this and you want a channel exclusive to that, go ahead and check it out. Ailurus After Hours, link in the description and in the pinned comment. The first video will drop on Saturday. Well, the first two videos are going to drop on Saturday, so go ahead and look forward to that if you're interested in spooky, serious true crime content. If that's your thing, go ahead and check it out. Subscribe if you haven't. Go ahead and subscribe. Do it. And as always, we gotta thank the Patreon supporters that make content like this possible. A big thank you to A Screaming Cloaker, Unikitty, Carter Not Steve, The Fake Musician, Lightstar, Red Pyramid Thing, Buckethead, Samantha Bellhart, Admin, AV8B Harrier 2 Plus, Swag Daddy 69, Zach F, Darth Titan, Fafnir Stuff, Keely, Dunder Has Hawk, Caroline Banana, Spiritus Kitsune, Soup, Viva LaRue, Julian, Benny's Big Bean Burrito, Knobs, Lady Laughs a Lot, Swiss Patreon user, Muffy Lou Who, Noah, John, and Catherine Taylor. Thank you so much for your support. It is greatly appreciated. If you want to help support the channel, there's 2 links in the description, one in my merch store and one in my Patreon. Both funds go links to the channel so we can maintain what's happening here. And as always, stay zesty.